Hey geeks, Barry here with Geek Out Studio, and today I'm going to show you how I did my Dark Angels Stormraven. Here's the list of paints that you'll need. And to start off with, I did do some magnetization to it. So for the doors, I just traced out an outline on a thin piece of ferrous metal. Once that was done, I just glued the metal to the interior of the Stormraven. And I'll do the same thing for like the weapon cowling and the turret itself. So like I said, here I'm cutting a very small piece of the metal to go on the underside of the cowling that goes over the turret weapons. Now for the magnets themselves, I just drilled all the way through the weapons and put, I think, 1/8 inch diameter rare earth magnets and glued them inside of the weapons. For the doors, I just put a bit of sprue on the reverse side and then just used 5-minute epoxy to hold and glue the magnets in place. And here's basically the final product. So with the metal, I don't have to worry about polarity, so, you know, whatever magnet is in the gun will attach to the turret. And the same with the weapon cowling. Now before all that, I did have to paint the interior. I used Vallejo Surface Primer Gray. And Vallejo Model Air Sand for the actual interior of the cockpit and the turret. For the Tech Marines, I started with Vallejo Game Air Scarlet Red. Then I highlight it with Vallejo Model Air Fire Red. But I think the colors were a bit too close, so I think I've put in a little bit of a highlight in the red, but I didn't note it down, so yeah. So for the actual details, I started with German gray on everything, and the metallic parts got basically gunmetal. And the Adeptus Mechanicus emblem, I just painted with Vallejo Game Color Cold Gray, and then just did a quick highlight of pure white. So for the interior, I picked out a couple of things with gunmetal, and for the actual seat and leather, I started with Vallejo Game Color Beastie Brown and highlighted it with Vallejo Game Color Leather Brown. Now since it mostly gets covered up, I try to put the highlights towards the edge of the leather, but it looks like it's kind of hard to see, so you could probably skip this part if you want it. Now for the screens, I started with Citadel Caliban Green, and then highlight it with Vallejo Game Color Livery Green and Scorpion Green. And then just put a very little bit of white on the edges just to make them pop. And all of this is done with very thin paint, so you get a nice gradient. Once I was all done, I gloss coated everything and gave everything oil wash. For the interior, I used brown. For the Tech Marines, I used black. And here I'm just cleaning up the excess wash with a makeup applicator and some odorless mineral spirit. Once that was all done, I went ahead and assembled the Tech Marines and put everything together, including the canopy. Now to mask the canopy off, I used Vallejo liquid mask, but it's basically just liquid latex that I use to block off the canopy from the painting process. So, and I primed the whole thing with Vallejo Surface Primer Gray. Now to get the wing details that I did, I then painted over everything with basically the whole wing with white. And to get a bit of an interesting gradient and just to add a bit of a color to the wings, I hit it from the side using Vallejo Model Air Ice Blue. Then I just printed off a template and cut it out with masking film and applied the masking film to the wings. Once that's ready to go, I then pre-shaded the model with Vallejo Surface Primer Black. Once that's all set, I then go over with a few light coats of Minotaur's dark green. Now, to push the contrast a little bit further, I then went over a couple of the flat areas and edges with Minotaur's Goblin Green. So for the engines, once they were primed, I went over them with Vallejo Model Air Black Metal. And just to kind of add some details, I dry brushed it with gunmetal. So, and for the landing skids, I just added some more detail with Vallejo Model Air Steel. So all the weapon housings are done using Citadel's Mephiston Red. And then just random details, so the like silver parts for the weapons, some details on the ship itself, all get a coat of gunmetal. So for the little angel detail, I went with a stone look. So I started with Vallejo Model Air, or sorry, not Model Air, Model Color Neutral Gray. I then did a wash with just black wash. And highlighted it with Vallejo Model Color Light Gray and a touch of white. Now for the missiles, I started with Vallejo Model Color Neutral Gray, and then I basically tried a two-brush wet blending of neutral gray and light gray. So, and you'll see the basically the two brush blending here in just a second. And basically what the two brush blending does is while the paints are wet, you just go back and forth blending between the highlight and the shadows. Giving you a kind of a mixture right there in the center for a gradient. So for the actual white Dark Angel emblem, again, I started with Vallejo Game Color Wolf Gray, and then just highlighted it with Vallejo white. Really, you can use pretty much any white. Now for the plasma glow, I started with Vallejo Game Colored Turquoise. Then I did a wash, just a blue wash, and from there I started dry brushing it with Vallejo Electric Blue and Sky Blue, trying to kind of focus right there on the edges and center where the glow would be. So you can see I'm trying to focus my dry brushing right at the edges and center of the plasma coils. Here's a little bit of real time of how I did it. Once that was done, I just ran a little bit of white along the edge, the very corner of the plasma coils, and if the white kind of came out a little too much, I just went in, like you see here, and just added a little bit of the blue shade if the white went into the coils themselves. For all the Aquilas on there, I went with Vallejo Liquid Gold Old Gold. And then here's the reveal of the wing detail. So then the whole thing got a gloss coat and did a black oil wash over it. To add a little bit of detail to the landing skids, I used AK Interactive Streak and Grime just to kind of give like an oil detail around the edges of the pistons. And then I used the makeup applicator and mineral spirit to clean up any of the excess oil wash. And then it's just a final assembly. So here is the final product. Hope you all enjoyed this. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below, and I'll see you next time.